Abraham, you've told us that the two sides, or the two parts of the creation formula, are the wanting or expecting, and then the other side being the believing, allowing. And what I
wanting or desiring on the other one side, and expecting or believing on the other.
Right. And what I want to do is focus on the allowing side. And one time you said that what made Jerry and Esther such a good team, or what brought forth what's happening now, or helped to bring forth, was that Jerry's great wanting and Esther's great allowing. And when I think of it in those terms, I think of more of Esther being receptive or being non-resistant to receiving.
That is the perfect word. Allowing means not resisting.
And so what I would like to know, for you to expand on maybe tonight, is how we've talked a lot about how we increase our wanting, but how do we increase our allowing in maybe two parts of the same thing. Same thing is, one is the reference back to Esther in the allowing. In her case, the allowing was letting more communication come from our inner being, or in this case, the whole family of Abraham. And so that's only one small part, but that's a particular focus. How do I get better, higher level communication, or allow higher level communication from my inner being? And then how do I just increase that whole side of the part of the equation of the allowing?
As we talk about wanting, it sounds a little bit like going out and getting something, when really that isn't a very good picture, because you don't go out and get anything. You just identify what it is you want, and then by law of attraction it comes to you. All you have to do is hold the image of that which you want, and in the moment that you give your thought to it, it begins to move toward you. And the only thing that ever keeps it from coming all the way into your experience is when you offer another thought that sends it away. And that is what resistance is. And so resisting is opposite of allowing. When you are allowing, you are not resisting. And when you are resisting, you are not allowing. How does one resist something he wants? He says, I want to be prosperous. And then through the day he says, I would really like that, but I can't afford it. That is a statement, or the feeling that he feels as he makes the statement is resisting his former statement. We say to you, all things come to you through the path of least resistance. Have you heard that before? In fact, a friend said, in fact, the whole universe, the scientists have decided, is based upon the path of least resistance. And so we say to you, anything you want, all you have to do is say, yes, I want that, and then pay attention. Your inner being will give you negative emotion every time you resist. And so every time you get some negative emotion, if you will stop focusing upon the lack and focus upon what you want, then you smooth away the resistance and you let it in. In the subject, our statement of Jerry and Esther being two who are co-creating. And in this case, the family of Abraham is here because of the two of them. It is not Esther's attraction only. It is the attraction of the two of them. If it had been Esther alone, she may have been a very old, gray-haired woman before we would have sauntered into her experience, because Esther was very much happy just moving from place to place, living happily ever after. She did not have an intense sense of seeking. She was so much enjoying living in the moment. Now that is because, even though they are two parts of the same non-physical perspective, because of her physical upbringing, let us say, she did not have a strong sense or desire for growth. She had a strong sense or desire for freedom. She had concluded at the early age that she would live happily ever after. This one, on the other hand, freedom seeker to the core also, has had a driving, urging passion for growth. Now, doesn't matter so much at what point it was stimulated. The point is that as the two of them came together, Esther's intent for happiness and feeling good was her predominant characteristic, while Jerry's intent for growth was his predominant characteristic. And the two of them coming together at that particular point in each of their lives. Now, had they come together years earlier, the combination would not have been the perfect balance that it was at this time, you see. Each of you have the potential to find that perfect balance within yourself. You do not need to co-create with another to find it. It was just something that was attracted by their broader intent, you see. Are you clearer about what it means to allow? To allow means just don't resist. Don't get in the way. Don't offer contradictory thought or feeling.
Okay, well, let me put it a little differently. Maybe I'm projecting something on Jerry that isn't true, but I perceive Jerry a lot like myself in the sense that he has a great wanting, but at the same time he is maybe not as receptive to things because of a certain caution or a tendency to think things to death, and he's not as open as Esther is. Now, what
Agreed.
is that difference? How can you have the best of both possible worlds?
It is something that you grow into through experience. That very caution that you speak of is what gave Esther the courage to allow. In other words, she felt like he was looking out and that he wouldn't let anything bad happen. And so while they were really delving into unknown territory, the reason that Esther was able to relax was because this one was cautious, so she didn't think that it was so necessary for her to look out. You see, as she released to allow Abraham in, she was really releasing her physical faculties, really putting herself in what could ordinarily be thought of or felt as a vulnerable position, but she did not feel vulnerable because the strong, wise, cautious one was nearby, you see. Now, that caution within you is the very thing that we say is your cornerstone. The set of beliefs that you hold is what keeps you from going off the deep end every time a new thought is introduced to you. And so in this example, Jerry provided that stability of beliefs while Esther was willing to reach out into the new adventure, and the combination of the caution and the reaching out is what has culminated in what you now know as Abraham speaking to you today, you see. That is the reason that we say do not be so hard on yourself if you note that there is a belief that you hold that might be slowing the progress on something, because that belief is there for a reason. And the process is a very comfortable, gradual process. Jerry is much more trusting, much more allowing, even receiving himself these days, where in the early days he would not allow it. Try as we would to communicate with him, he wanted control of his own thinking process, where now frequently he sits and allows us to speak to him. You are following? And so it is something, it is a trusting, but it is a trusting that must be allowed, in other words, and it is, we would never say, just trust, because that is a little bit like laying yourself out naked in the blazing sun and saying, here I am, anybody that's out there, come and get me. Your caution is well placed.
Okay, I think I understand better now. It may be that some of us, our personality or our belief system tends towards either to the cautious side or the being receptive side. So in order to bring whatever is either one or the other up, it's a process.
It is a process,
and
it comes out of your wanting, and it does take time. Okay. There is another thing that we will insert here, and that is that it is more typical of the women to be more allowing than it is of the men, because in your society, your role as men have been to be the thinker, the protector, the resistor, where the women have been protected. And so women, for the most part, do not have their guard up because it is never, or it is changing, but you're getting the point. Esther is an old-fashioned girl. Her father took care of her. And now Jerry does, and she doesn't worry. She trusts, you see. And so now what we're wanting to say to you is that you can all be old-fashioned girls. You can recognize that nothing bad is going to happen to you, and that your inner being is watching over you and offering you emotion to let you know when you're in a vulnerable place. Indeed.
Abraham's a good old boy, and we're all good old-fashioned girls. What's the world coming to?
Indeed. What a group we make.
The second question is, I guess, is on energy. You said that we have access to all the non-physical energy we can use. And you've made the statement that a girl using energy in Germany doesn't short-circuit us here. And at the same time, you've made the statement that the alignment is bringing more focus and therefore more non-physical energy into us and into our setting, and will make it easier for us to do things like manifest what we want. What's the difference in the energy, or there isn't? It seems like if you've got access to all the energy you can ever use, what is that difference of the additional energy coming in? Or is there any difference?
There really is not any
energy
difference.
is energy.
Energy is energy, and all of it is attentional focus. In other words, the reason that the energy of your planet is increasing is because of the non-physical attention that is offered to it. And so as you are deliberately setting forth your intent to utilize the energy, there is simply infinite amount available to you. By virtue of the intensity, in other words, the fact that there is more energy being focused naturally just means you have easier access to it. That is all. In other words, more will discover that they are the creator of their experience. Let us see how we can put this. It is not that any one individual who understands how to utilize the energy would see any greater advantage to it. It is that more will experience the greater advantage of it. More inner beings are focused upon their physical counterparts.